going to talk a little logic today. I hope you don't mind, or just thinking through some critical thinking skills. I think this time, the era we live in, this is even more important. But I'm going to apply this to fitness, nutrition especially, and training plan. And this is the idea of a survivorship bias. You may not be familiar with this. Once we put fancy things on these, but as I walk you through this briefly, you'll probably be like, yeah, I get it. Okay. But the importance of understanding survivorship bias when we are evaluating programs, okay, mostly diet, but training certainly. Even when we look at training kids, right? What's the best way to do it? Is it better to specialize or not? Okay. So by the way, Dr. Miller here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Lots of videos, and like this video if you end up liking it. Okay, so let's talk about what a survivorship bias is. And so let's say that let's take the diet du jour right now, which is keto. Let's say you talk to your neighbor, and they're on keto, and they're like, man, keto is the greatest freaking thing. I lost 30 pounds on keto. I feel great. I just have energy. I like the food. Keto's it. Keto's, I have friends that have done keto. They've really done well with it. And so you would look at your sample size of your neighbor and maybe his colleagues that he says that all swear by keto and think keto is great. And you would say keto is a successful diet, okay? What you don't see is perhaps, okay, let's assume your neighbor and friends are 5 people that have had success. They've all lost the same percentage of weight loss, and they all feel great to the same level if we can measure that, and feeling good. And so on the surface, again, those people are put forward. They might make commercials and sell books that say keto is great, drink fat water, and all this other stuff. But what you don't see is the other, we assume there's 5 of them, other 95 people who didn't see any results, or perhaps they saw a little bit of results, right? And so if we took a sample of 100 people, then like from across the population that tried keto, okay, within the keto population, all right, how many of those people actually were successful? Now it's only 5%. So you went from, 5 people I heard it from said all they had success with it, and that was 100%. So success rate is 100% on keto diet. However, when you look at then the whole sample size, let's assume that there was actually 100 people that we knew did keto. We could know that population. It would be a 5%. Okay, and so what that is a survivorship bias, meaning the people that stuck with it and saw success with it, those are the ones you see, and so you immediately, right? This really works. Okay, I'll put this in the world of work, like youth sports, things like that. We might say, let's take a famous athlete like Ronaldo, or if you don't understand soccer, and I'll be honest with you, I don't either. I'll be really honest with you. I'm American. Let's say that you follow some other sport. Let's say I'll do some different ones. Like let's say Rich Froning, right? So from CrossFit. Let's say Annie Thor's daughter, right? Don't mind they both came to mind at the same time. Let's say a great baseball player. Trying to think of any new ones. I used to watch baseball, but I don't anymore. What's the big guy? Patrick Judge, is that his name? I think. Okay. So let's just take all these players, and let's assume every single one of them are early specialists, meaning they're like, all we do is we play our sport, okay? Even when it comes to CrossFit, all we do is CrossFit. We don't do anything else. And CrossFit kind of is an interesting idea, but let's just stick with this theme here. And so therefore, you look at all these famous athletes and say, okay, well, early specialization is the way to go for my little Johnny, little Sally, my kid or my nephew or whatever, niece, and let's do this thing. Let's specialize early. Well, and then you come find out, why did my niece and nephew burn out? Why did they fall out? Why did they have injuries, right? It's because you saw the survivorship bias. You saw those survivors of this type of format. I think that's very prevalent when it comes to early specialization in sports. This is very much an anecdotal, observation, and certainly, take it for what it's worth. But the research literature, it seems to be leaning towards a more variety in sport. Certainly, I think the prominent voices in youth sports and youth development is variety is better. But even that could be a survivorship bias too. You could say, well, look at all these people that, right? So you run into this problem either way. That we tend to pick up the people because that's the only ones we see is the survivors. We see those that did well with it, and we assume then that's the proper way to go things. And the reality in this case with youth, it might be a little bit of both. There may be some sports that it is a good idea to specialize early, and there are some sports where it's not. It probably depends on where the sport is, what the sport is, what are the technical demands. Is it a multiplanar sport? Is it mentally tough? Is it hard on the body? All these questions you could ask. Okay. So that, just keep that in mind. So I hope that concept is understood. Again, this falls nicely into your conventional marketing schemes. Okay. Because we can always hold up, at least assume somebody who actually did, not an actor, did this product, did this scheme, did this system, and this is the result they saw. I have my own biases, right? And I've fallen for this many times, the survivorship bias. Like, oh man, this must really work. Let's follow it. Let's think about it a little bit now, right? I hope if anything just gives you pause. When new diets come out and there's people thrust in front of you, right? You see this in the New Year's resolution fads, right? Sally looked like this. Now she looks like this 6 weeks later. Okay, well, what happened to the other 50 people that trainer worked with? Did they fall out? And why did they fall out, right? Are you going to be one of them? Can you avoid what they did? Maybe that trainer is not a good fit for you. And so the way to work around survivorship bias, okay, is, and this sounds so vague, is to think critically. So understand that, let's say your neighbor again was on keto. Who is your neighbor? Well, your neighbor really doesn't do any high intensity exercise. Your neighbor is pretty sedentary. Your neighbor likes to eat fat. Not really a big carb person. Doesn't struggle with a sweet tooth. The demands of his job is not real high physically. Maybe that's a good fit for him. Okay. But if you are working out at high intensities and you like to lift or do CrossFit or sprint or you run marathons, right? Right? Keto is a little bit closer to being effective with those type of things, but still you need your carbs. Then keto may not be a good fit. If you like carbs, keto is probably not a good fit. If you don't like brain fog, keto is probably not a good fit, right? Depending on how you do it. That's unfair to say. That's a big statement. So the point is that you have to think through these things. You have to step back and say, what is the actual population? And we can't know that. You don't know how many people have tried keto. It's only an estimate. And if the people that are interested in keto would market to you, of course they would make the population smaller in some way, right? They can manipulate that, just with women. All right, women, this is small, but well, how old were the women, right? Like what women, is it broken down by age, right? You can get more specific in the actual demographics of the individual. That's what I'm trying to get at with the neighbor. Who is this neighbor? How old are they? What do they do? And if those demographics match you, maybe that this is a diet worth trying. If those demographics don't, then you can still try it. You can do whatever you want, but don't be surprised if it doesn't work. Okay. I made this video with the ultimate hopes, as you understand this concept, that you will see through marketing ploys, that you'll think critically. So you won't bounce from one program to the next, suffering from survivorship bias all the time, right? Well, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did this. Who's so-and-so? Okay. Who is so-and-so? More prevalent in the diet world, but it happens in the training. Tendency is training is that people move to training, and there may be some benefit from the novelty of a training program. So it's probably not as bad as long as that the skill level for the activities in the training program are not above somebody's current skill level that they get hurt. That's what I'm getting at, or the volume is too high, etc. So it's probably not as big of a deal. It's still a big deal, but not as big of a deal. Diet stuff, it is a big deal because your energy levels, rebound. Like if it's something that excludes a macro and you hate it, you're probably going to rebound hard when you get get that macro back, whatever that macro that was evil in that particular plan was. There's going to be some sort of issue. It's more of a daily, right? You got to deal with food every day. You don't have to work out every day or train every day, right? You can, but I think you get the point. It's just, it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter with training. It's just more so of a big deal when it comes to dietary practices. Don't fall for the survivorship bias. All right. See you in the next video.